Hi guys! One day I realized something important. If God gave me one life, then I should not waste it waiting. So I decided to be more specific, to plan my dreams every day, to imagine them clearly, to feel them deeply, and to walk towards them slowly. This is my planned dream journey, starting with Korea. I'm not in Korea yet, but I am already walking there every night in my mind. Because before a journey happens in the world, it happens quietly inside the soul. And for me, everything started with a single question that stayed with me for years. A question that did not feel like it came from people, society, or noise, but from God Himself asking me gently, patiently, and without pressure, I gave you one life on this earth. What will you do with it? For a long time, I avoided answering because answering means responsibility, and responsibilities means change, and change means leaving comfort behind. So I lived days that looked safe on the outside but felt empty inside. Days where time passed but meaning stayed still, until one day in silence I realized that this life was not given to me just to survive, but to experience, to see, to feel, and to walk towards the unknown even when my hands are shaking. I'm not in Korea yet, but I'm already working there every night in my mind. Because before the journey happens in the world, it happens quietly inside the soul. And for me, everything started with a single question that stayed with me for years. A question that did not feel like it came from people, society, or noise, but from God Himself, asking me gently, patiently, and without pressure. I gave you one life on this earth. What will you do with it? For a long time, I avoided answering because answering means responsibility, and responsibility means change, and change means leaving comfort behind. So I lived days that looked safe on the outside but felt empty inside. Days where time passed but meaning stayed still, until one day in silence I realized that this life was not given to me just to survive, but to experience, to see, to feel, and to walk toward the unknown even when my hands are shaking. That is when Korea appeared in my mind, not as a country on the map, but as a symbol of movement, courage, and a future version of myself who chose to live instead of hide. In this dream journey, I imagine the moment I finally decide to book my first flight. And even before the plane exists, fear arrives first. Whispering questions like, what if you fail? What if you are not strong enough? What if this is not for you? But louder than fear is curiosity, because curiosity always asks a better question. What if this changes your life forever? I imagine preparing slowly, carefully, checking documents again and again, not because I don't trust myself, but because this moment matters, and when the day comes in my imagination, I see myself walking into the airport for the very first time, feeling small inside a very big place, surrounded by bright lights, long hallways, echoing announcements, and people walking fast hidden behind tired eyes, and I realize that every person here is either leaving something behind or chasing something ahead, and suddenly I don't feel alone anymore. Holding my passport feels heavy, not in weight, but in meaning, because it represents permission, trust, and opportunity. And as I imagine checking in, passing security, and waiting at the gate, I feel a strange mix of emotions: excitement trying to smile, fear trying to hold my hand, and hope standing quietly in the background watching. Time moves slowly at the gate, but my thoughts move fast, thinking about home, about concern, about all the times I almost chose not to dream, and yet here I am, imagining myself waiting for a plane that will lift me into a future I once thought was impossible. When I imagine stepping inside the airplane, my heart becomes very loud, because this is my first time inside a flying machine, something built by human dreams and courage, and I pause for a second, touching the seat gently, sitting down carefully, looking around at the narrow space, the overhead lights, the small window, and I think to myself, so this is where fear and freedom sit together. As people settle around me, strangers who don't know my story, I realize something powerful. No one knows how scared or excited I am, and that means this moment belongs only to me. When the planes start moving, slowly at first, then faster, my breath changes, my thought quietly down, and when the wheels finally leave the ground in my imagination, I look out of the window and watch the earth slowly fall away, buildings becoming tiny, roads turning into lines, and at that moment, something inside me lifts too, something that has been waiting for years. Above the clouds, the world feels quiet in a way I have never known before, and I imagine sitting there, suspended between where I came from and where I am going, realizing that the space in between is where growth happens. When food is served inside the plane, simple and warm, I imagine eating slowly, not rushing, tasting more than just food, tasting courage, independence, and the sweetness of finally choosing myself. And I promise myself that I will remember this moment forever, because first time shapes us in invisible ways. As the plane begins its descent in my dream, my heart starts beating fast again, because the idea of Korea is no longer distant, it is close, real, and waiting, and I take a deep breath, telling myself that whatever happens next, I showed up, and that alone is enough. And with it thought, my imagined plane moves closer to the ground, carrying not just my body, but years of unanswered questions, dreams, and quiet prayers. As the plane slowly descends in my imagination, I feel my body become still, but my thoughts become louder, because the idea of Korea is no longer far away. It is right below me, waiting patiently, and in that moment, I realize that dreaming is easy, but arriving even in the mind requires courage. When the wheels touch the ground, I imagine a soft but powerful sound, a small shake that tells me this is real now. And even though I am still sitting, still imagining, my heart feels like it has stepped into a new chapter of life, one that will never fully close again. I imagine people around me clapping quietly, smiling, stretching, checking phones. But for me, everything slows down because I want to remember this exact moment, the moment where my dream journey officially lands. When I imagine standing up and walking out of the airplane, I take slow steps, not because I am tired, but because I want to feel everything. The narrow hallway, the gentle Korean voices, the signs written in Hangul letters that look beautiful and unfamiliar, and I tell myself, you're really here, at least in your soul. The air inside the airport feels different from the plane, cleaner, cooler, calmer, and I imagine breathing deeply, letting my lungs accept a country I have never touched before. And for a moment, I feel emotional for no clear reason, because some feelings doesn't need explanations. As I imagine walking toward immigration, my passport feels heavier in my hand. Not because of fear, but because it carries meaning, proof that I dare to imagine a bigger life for myself. I imagine standing in line, watching people ahead of me, listening to the quiet sounds of stamps, footsteps, and soft instructions. And even though I am calm on the outside, inside my heart is having a conversation with itself, asking, do you really belong here? And then I imagine stepping forward, handing over my passport, looking at the officer, feeling small but respectful. And when the stamp finally hit the page in my imagination, I feel something powerful, because that sound means permission, entry, and acceptance, not just into a country, but into a new version of myself. After immigration, I imagine walking toward the baggage area, standing near the moving bed, watching suitcases circle endlessly, and I realize how symbolic this movement is, because everyone is waiting for something that belongs to them. When I imagine my bag finally appearing, I feel relieved, grounded, and ready. Because now I have everything I need, not much, but enough, and sometimes enough is more powerful than plenty. I lift my bag and feel the weight, reminding myself that this journey is mine to carry, no one else can carry it for me. When I imagine walking toward the exit and the doors opening, I pause, because I know this moment matters. I imagine stepping outside the airport and taking my first real breath of Korean air, feeling it cool and unfamiliar, touching my skin differently, and I close my eyes for a second, because I want my body to remember this feeling forever. In that breath, I imagine gratitude filling my chest, not loud gratitude, but quiet appreciation, the kind that comes when you realize how far you have come, even if journey is only beginning. Outside, I imagine seeing buses, taxis, trains, signs pointing in many directions, people moving confidently, knowing exactly where they are going, and for the first time, I imagine myself standing still in a place where everything is moving. And instead of feeling lost, I feel free, because being unsure means possibility is wide open. I imagine checking directions, slowly understanding signs, learning through observation, and telling myself that it is okay not to know everything, because learning is part of arriving. In this quiet moment, standing outside the airport in my imagination, I feel a deep inner conversation begin. One that says, you could have stayed safe, you could have stayed small, but you chose this. And I answer silently, yes, I will choose it again. I imagine thinking about home, about comfort, about familiar faces, but instead of missing them painfully, I feel thankful because they shaped me enough to let me go. Somewhere between imagining the airport lights and the moving people, I feel something inside me shift, something invisible but strong, like fear stepping back slightly and trust stepping forward gently. I realize that arriving in a new country, even in a dream, teaches you something important. You are more capable than you think, and life becomes larger the moment you step outside your comfort, even mentally. As I imagine preparing to leave the airport and head toward the city, watching the roads pressing forward, light slowly appearing as evening approaches, I feel excited, nervous, and calm all at once. Because now, the airport is behind me, and the city is ahead, full of unknown streets, small meals, quiet walks, and moments that will slowly shape who I am becoming. And as this part of my dream day closes, I whisper to myself, you are exactly where you need to be. As I imagine leaving the airport behind, I see myself stepping into a rain or a bus that slowly moves toward the city. And as the doors close, I feel a gentle separation from the place of arrival and a quiet approach toward the place where life truly begins. Through the window, I imagine watching Korea pass by for the first time, buildings appearing and disappearing, signs written in beautiful, unfamiliar letters, lights slowly turning on as the sky changes color. And even though I don't fully understand what I'm seeing, I feel calm because understanding can come later, but feeling must come first. I sit quietly, holding my bag close, listening to the soft sound around me, and I realize how powerful silence can be when it is filled with meaning. When I imagine finally reaching my place to stay, whether it is a small hotel or a simple room, I open the door slowly, step inside, and close it behind me, and in that moment, the world becomes very quiet. I imagine putting my bag down, sitting on the bed, looking around the room, noticing small details like the light, the window, the clean space, and I feel something deep and emotional rise inside me because this is the first time I am truly alone in a foreign country, even if only in my dream. Jet lag settles into my body, not heavy, but noticeable, making time feel strange, like day and night are confused, and I sit there for a while, not doing anything, just breathing, just letting the reality of the moment sink in. In that silence, my thoughts become clear, and I imagine asking myself questions I never asked before, like, who am I when no one knows me? And what kind of life do I want to build from here? I imagine thinking about God again, not asking for anything, not complaining, but simply feeling thankful because even dreaming of this moment means I didn't give up on myself. I tell myself gently that it is okay to feel tired, confused, and emotional at once because growth often feels like this, quiet, uncomfortable, and beautiful. Even though I imagine feeling tired, there is a small excitement inside me night, walking slowly into the street, feeling the air, hearing the city sounds, and letting curiosity guide me feet. Soon, I imagine seeing a bright Korean convenience store, lights glowing warmly against the darkening sky, and for some reason, it feels like an invitation not just to eat but to participate in daily life. When I imagine stepping inside, I feel like I am entering a small world of routines where locals stop for simple things and I walk slowly through the aisle looking at food with unfamiliar names, colorful packaging, and simple choices that suddenly feel very important. I imagine choosing a simple triangle kimbap, instant ramen, and a small drink. Not because I want luxury, but because I want honesty. And when I pay and step outside, sitting quietly near the stove, I imagine eating slowly, tasting each bite carefully. In that moment, I don't feel rich, famous, or special, but and that feels better than anything else. Because life is not about big moments only, it is about small, quiet ones that stays in your heart. I imagine smiling softly to myself, realizing that I am capable of taking care of myself, even far from everything familiar. As night fully arrives in my dream, I imagine standing up, throwing the trash away properly like everyone else, and beginning to walk with no clear direction, letting the street decide my path. The city lights glow softly, reflections dance on the road, people pass by the calm faces, shops close slowly, others remain open, and I walk without hurry, without expectation, just observing, just absorbing. I feel amazed, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, deep way, like my heart is expanding slowly, learning new shapes. Somewhere during that walk, I imagine stopping, looking around, feeling the night air on my face, and realizing something important. I am not chasing happiness anymore, I am loving it. I feel tired, peaceful, and grateful all at once, because even though this is still a dream, it feels more alive than any days I have already lived. And as this part of day one gently comes to an end, I tell myself quietly, you are becoming someone new. That is okay. As my night walk continues in my imagination, I find myself moving slower now, not because I am tired, but because my heart is full. And when the heart is full, it does not rush, it listens. I imagine watching people pass by me, some walking alone like me, some laughing with friends, some heading home after long days, and I realize that every face carries a story I will never fully know. And somehow, being surrounded by these unknown lives make me feel connected instead of distant. The spirits feel safe, calm, and quietly alive. And even though I am far from home, I imagine feeling a strange sense of belonging, like the world is telling me softly, you are allowed to be here. I imagine stopping near a street corner, watching traffic lights change colors, listen to distant conversations, noticing how the city breathes at night, and I understand something important. Travel is not only about famous places, it is about paying attention. The glow from shop signs reflects in my eyes, the air feels cool on my skin, and I imagine pulling my jacket closer, not just to stay warm, but to hold myself, to ground myself in the moment. In that quiet observation, I feel my thoughts slow down, and for the first time in a long while, My mind is not planning the future or replaying the past, it is simply here. As I walk, I imagine thinking about the person I used to be, the one who doubted, who waited for the right time, who thought dreams were only for others, and I don't feel angry at that version of myself anymore. Instead, I feel compassion because that person survived long enough to bring me here, even if only in a dream for now. I realize that courage is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes courage is just taking one step, then another, even when one is watching and even when the result is uncertain. Eventually, I imagine turning back toward my room, following familiar streets now, lights guiding me gently, and when I open the door and step inside again, the silence welcomes me like a soft blanket. I take off my shoes slowly, place my bag down carefully, and sit on the bed for a moment, feeling the tiredness finally reach my body, not the kind of tiredness that hurts, but the kind of that feels earned. The room feels different now than it did earlier, warmer, safer, more personal, because I have lived a day, even if only in my mind, and that changes the space. As I lie down, lights dim, city sounds faint in the distance, I imagine my thoughts drifting gently, replaying small moments from the day, the airport lights, the first breath of air, the taste of simple food, the quiet walk under glowing signs. I think about that question again, the one that started everything. What will you do with the life I gave you? And this time, I don't feel pressure to answer perfectly because today itself feels like an answer. I imagine closing my eyes, my body slowly relaxing, jet lag mixing with emotional exhaustion, and as sleep approaches, I feel a deep sense of peace, the kind that comes when you know you are walking in the right direction, even if the road is long. In my dream, Korea does not feel loud or overwhelming anymore. It feels gentle, patient, like it understands that this is my first day and it doesn't ask too much from me. Before sleep fully takes me, I imagine making a quiet promise to myself, not spoken out loud but felt deeply. I will keep choosing growth over fear, curiosity over comfort, and life over hesitation. And with that promise resting softly in my heart, my first dream day in Korea comes to an end. Not with fireworks, not with noise, but with calm, gratitude, and the feeling that something meaningful has begun. Let's meet